This job is tough. The one word that I keep hearing, courage. Do I, as the HR professional, have courage to go to my business executives and say to them, great intent, you're using AI to build capacity and cutting headcount. Great short-term solution, and it's not going to get you where you need to go. That takes courage, and it's tough. Don't read this cover to cover. This is like a menu in a great restaurant. Open it up, scan the chapters.
Welcome to the HR Masterclass, the podcast where we talk about leadership, culture, and talent. I'm Frédéric and I hand the microphone to leaders who have something to say. We talk about experience, convictions, and how they make things move. Today, we welcome an exceptional guest, Dave Ulrich, widely regarded as the father of modern HR and one of the most influential management thinkers of the past decades. He's a professor at the University of Michigan, the author of dozens of books that have shaped how organizations think about HR, and most recently the co-editor of The Age of HR, a free collection of essays from 85 thought leaders. What strikes you with Dave is the simplicity he brings to complex ideas, paired with the rigor of someone who has spent a career testing his intuitions against data. We talked about what he calls Stakeholder HR, looking outside the company, not just inside it. We talked about his So That framework, which connects everyday HR activity to real outcomes for humans. And we talked about AI, of course, not as a threat, but as something that frees up capacity, while human ingenuity decides what to do with it. This podcast is produced with our partners TrendSearch and Q7 Leader. I wish you an excellent listen, and if you enjoy it, please don't hesitate to give us 5 stars, subscribe, and spread the word.
Dave Ulrich.
Dave, what has been your journey? What brought you to where you are today? Many people refer to you as the father of modern HR, as the most influential thinker in the past decade. So what brought you to that level?
It's a very tricky question because I could spend forever, but let me be very quick with the question. I was in school, so decades ago, obviously, given my age. I was planning to go to law school. I took a course in what was called organizational behavior. And the professor said, there's no assignment. I'd like you to observe the organizations where you live, where you work, where you worship, and tell me what you learn. Observe. And he captured my imagination. And so I wrote a 10-page paper every week about what I learned. And at the end of the semester, he said, nobody's ever done that. And so I'd write papers about the books I'd study in English, Shakespeare, Milton, Paradise Lost, and the organizational implications. And he said, you need to study organizational behavior. And I'll just share this very quickly. So I called my parents and I said, I'm going to study OB instead of law. And they said, oh, good, our son will become a doctor. And I said, no, it's organizational behavior. And they said, what is it? And I said, I don't know, but it just captivates me. So since then, for decades, I've really looked at my wife, who there's a picture on the mantle, says I have OCD, organization compulsive disorder. I love to study organizations. How do they work? How do they operate? How do they manage? And that's been my passion for decades, ending up with a PhD, trying to figure out how do you manage an organization that makes a difference. And once you begin to study organizations, you quickly come into the human resource issues. How do you hire people? How do you build culture? How do you build systems that outperform individual skills? How do you build a process that's better than the people? And so I stumbled into the HR world as a way not to do HR, but to help an organization be more effective at serving its stakeholders. And the underlying value is a value I've shared for decades, which is values defined by the receiver. And I think anybody in a long-term relationship understands the basic principle. When I give my wife a gift, she defines the value of the gift, not me. When I was first married, I would get her tickets to basketball games or sporting events. And her comment would be, enjoy yourself. Because that was not a value to her. I've learned that value is defined by the receiver. So when you build an organization, it's not what the organization does, it's what it creates value for others. And
Okay,
so
very
that's led
clear.
me to think about stakeholders and the value we create. So that's been my journey in a nutshell. I hope my parents they passed away. I think they were okay with my OB career by the time they passed. But thank you for asking.
That's fascinating. And that brings us straight to your last book, The Age of HR. We'll obviously share the link because it's something people can download, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so
Absolutely.
it's done very generously. So you've written this book with many other people. It's a gold mine for current HR thinking. It's just out, and I think it's a collection of 70 thought leaders who have written chapters. That's fascinating. That's really the most current thinking on HR, but not only HR. And I think it's the point. So you say very early in the book that HR is standing at an inflection point. We've heard that several times already. So what is making that inflection point different this time?
By the way, we'll talk about the book in some detail, but the inflection point comes out of Intel technology. And the basic argument decades ago is as you change, you continue to change and move forward, or you quit and you decline. So you face an inflection point of growth or decline. I think the HR profession has always been growing, but there's 4 or 5 things that are driving that inflection point. One is obviously AI. I can't believe we've done almost 10 minutes of a conversation and haven't said AI 3 times. It just, the AI technology is not new. It's been around forever, but AI is so pervasive. It drives how we think and what we do. And it drives the pace of change. I say to people, what's long-term today? Tuesday. I mean, in the world we live in, you have so many environmental changes. For example, Europe may be going through a heat wave. Well, who could have predicted that a week ago? We don't know. What's the cause? We don't know. We face economic turmoil around the world. We face in the world we live in, there's just so many dramatic changes that are going on. How do we begin to respond? And the response always boils down to OB, and back to my degree, organizational behavior. Does an organization adapt and thrive, or does an organization get locked into the past and wither and die? And I think that logic of an inflection point, because of the technology, the demographics, the economic uncertainty, frankly, the political toxicity, which is demoralizing for everybody, where we face a world where the people issues are becoming center stage.
Absolutely. And what you've described is an evolution of HR to know what you call stakeholder HR. So that's that inflection point. You either you'll be part of it or you'll not be part of HR, right? And so
Absolutely.
can you tell us more about that stakeholder orientation
Sure.
of HR?
And I love to put things in context. And I think too many of us don't. We go on AI and we get an answer and we think, oh, that's really new. No, almost everything has a history. And the history helps me understand the present. In fact, I get frustrated anytime I see now a slide that says from to, I change it in my head to and also, because the history behind drives. So the field of HR is managing people, call it personnel, compliance, terms and conditions of work. It's still got to be done. We built on that human resources, which is the HR practices, staffing, training, development, the systems of HR. We built on that human capital, which is managing people, the human capital, the people in the organization. Do you manage them well? I think now we build on that stakeholder HR. Human capital was about strategic HR. And the example I like is really simple. If I look in a mirror, and the mirror is strategy, I say, what do I do to make the strategy happen? Focused inside the company. So a company has a strategy about what they can do and where they can succeed. And then I say, let's change the metaphor. I'm in my office right now. If you have this video, and you may have it audio or video, I have a window. Look out the window. What's going on outside? And for me, stakeholder HR begins to look outside, not at a mirror, but through a window, and to say, what's happening outside? Customers, investors, communities, the world, the context we live in. Can I use HR to adapt to that external stakeholder? And when I do that, suddenly I don't just deliver strategy. I help craft a strategy. And I help begin to say, I'm not just going to do what the mirror tells me to do. I'm going to create what the marketplace needs me to do. And I think that's a pivot. Again, it's not from to, it's and also. We need to do strategy. We need human resources. We need personnel. But that stakeholder lens puts me in a very different position as an HR professional.
Oh yeah. And in your book, you introduce two words that helps us to understand exactly what it means. It is the so that.
I love it.
It's
I love it. I do a workshop, and let's pretend for those listening, you're in a workshop and I'm getting to talk with you either virtually or in person. I start with a question, what's the biggest challenge in your job? And here's what we hear. Hiring people, using AI, leadership development, succession planning, building a culture, getting what's called Q7 leader insights. The challenge in my job is getting ideas. And I say, I totally agree, but it's incomplete. Behind each of those, put a so that. And the so that has to be that I resolve the challenge so that a customer, an investor, a community where we live and work is benefited. So I want to do leadership development so that an investor pays a premium for my stock price. I want to do talent acquisition so that our strategy, or so that a customer gets a better product. I want to do AI so that our investors and customers give us a premium. They buy more as customers, they invest more as investors. The community has a better reputation. Again, it's such a simple test, but our mindset is almost always about the activity in front of us, not the outcome of the activity. And the so that allows you to begin to get to that stakeholder perspective.
So that's bringing the multi-stakeholder approach that we've seen in company strategies, but inside the HR thinking, right?
Notice how brilliantly you just did it. You started your comment with so that.
I didn't realize.
No, I mean, that's the mindset.
Yeah.
And that's probably why you've been so successful, because when you say, I've worked in this company, I'm starting a company, I'm doing proteins, so that the patient gets cured. And there's a lot of terms for this. A North Star, Steve Covey calls it, others call it purpose-driven organization. But linking what we do inside the company
Yeah.
and our day-to-day actions with outside.
It's powerful because it's so easy and you can make it a daily practice. So I love it very much. It's easier to understand than the notion of purpose or vision. It's very practical and it connects activities to outcomes. That's really it's a gel. No, how do you do that? How do you integrate this into the HR thinking?
I think there's three, by the way, one of my fields, and I know you've used the word and I just have to say it. When I did my PhD, nobody in my family had a PhD, so it was new. I didn't know what I was getting into. Your children are so lucky they have family that's done so many things. My father was a forest ranger, and he built campgrounds, and my mother was a homemaker, but my PhD ended up being in taxonomy. And taxonomy says, how do you mathematically simplify a complex world? And I love that idea of simplification because it allows me to take a set of complex ideas and make them simple. So when I do the outside in, the simple logic is, who are the stakeholders and what can we give them that will get them value? The value is defined by the receiver. Back to the sporting tickets for my wife. I've learned, by the way, if I'm going to give a good gift to my spouse of 50 years, we have a lot of years, I think what matters to her, what's meaningful to her. And it's that logic that really drives HR. Now, in that mindset, I've discovered there's three very simple things, taxonomy, that I think are critical for HR. And I'm going to name them really simply. It's mindset, skill set, and setting. Mindset. When we think about our job as HR professionals, do we think about the value we create for others? We just did that. So that. What's the mindset? I'm not here to do my work. I'm here to do my work so that somebody gets a benefit. Skill set. Do we have the skills, the knowledge, the competencies? Do we know how to go about doing that? Can we build our skills, both our skills and the organizational skills? And setting. do we embed what we do in the setting in which we live? One of the things that we've begun to learn, and it came up in some discussion even this morning where I am, is we go to a training program, we learn a new skill set, do A, B, and C. We go home to a system or a process that doesn't enable that. The compensation, the performance review, all of the systems don't encourage that. And so we fall back into our old patterns. Recidivism is high, not only in prisons, not only in weight loss, but it's high in training erosion. And so mindset, how do I re-see my job, my identity as an HR person? Skill set, there are skills to doing this. How do I interview customers? How do I understand price earnings ratios? How do I understand investor data? And then setting, how do I change the systems and processes that will institutionalize what it is we're trying to do? Mindset, skill set, setting. Those are my three high-level ways to think about building this stakeholder HR.
Oh, I love it. And it's the contrary of what we sometimes call HR for HR, right? When we come up, and I've done that too many times in my career, coming up with a great idea, developing a process, a system, a tool, and then being disappointed that people don't use it.
Yeah, and that's the mindset. I mean, my goal is not to do a tool, it's to do a tool so that something happens. So a simple example. I was a couple of weeks ago in a meeting with 50 HR people, big company, and they were going through their plans and their goals, and they asked me to speak. They were gracious. And I said, let me do a rhetorical question. If some of the major customers or investors or community citizens where your company has operations were in the room for the next 2 days, what would they say? Would they say, these 2 days are going to help me, a customer, I'm going to buy more product, thank you, you're going to meet my need. An investor, I'm going to invest in your company, either debt or equity. A community, thank you for being a contributor in the city where you have operations. And frankly, in this company, they couldn't get it. They said, well, we're here to do HR work. I said, no, you're here to do work so that customer, investor, and community, and you can get others, get value. And what I think would be delightful is bring a couple of customers, a couple of investors, a couple of community leaders where you have operations. And at the end of the 2 days, say to them, okay, you're a panel. How will what we've just discussed have value to you? By the way, that's mindset, that's skill set. And then you got to bring it into the setting. I have to be honest, they didn't agree. And there was another keynote speaker who said, well, let me share with you all of our research about HR practices. And it's Frédéric, you understand change. You're doing a startup company. It's not easy to change mindset, skill set, and setting. But when we get there, the impact is amazing. And I think we're making progress.
The question that I have on my mind is the big change. You said it's an inflection point. Are current HR people capable of doing that change?
Yes and no. I think there's many HR people who went into HR because they like people. My wife, again, her picture, I should tell just to get to know me. On my mantle behind me, if you have video of this, I have video of people whom I admire greatly. Martin Luther King, Sheikh Zayed. That's my father doing when he retired. You ask about my background. My father was a forest ranger, worked in government. When he retired, he took his truck and he got food in local stores, a day-old bread and fruit, and he gave it to shelters around the cities where he lived. And he did that for 20 years. He called it his daily bread run. And so I have pictures of people I admire. About a year and a half ago, my wife added her picture, which tells me that I'd made a big mistake. So now it's the prominent picture. Are HR people ready to do it? Yes and no. I think many HR people are. Some go into HR because they, quote, like people. My wife's a psychologist. And she said, why did you go into psychology? I like people. And she said, a lot of the people I meet with are not likable. I mean, but I love to solve the problems people give.
Oh.
And so when I say I have OCD, organization compulsive disorder, I love to solve the organizational problems. Again, and by the way, I'm still addicted to that. My wife calls me addicted to OCD, organization compulsive. Last night I had a flight delay of 3 hours, which was really frustrating. And at the end, I was almost ready to write a letter to the CEO of the airline and say, I just spent 3 hours. Let me give you 6 tips that would have made this more palatable for us, the passengers who are struggling. Now, sometimes the delays are inevitable. It's whatever the delay is caused by. But there's some things you could do that would improve. And I have my wife's voice now in my head. And she says, Dave, when those addictions come to you, don't respond. You don't need to write a letter to the CEO. You don't need to call the pilot and tell the pilot what he or she, I think it was a he, could have done differently. Just relax, read your book, relax, do your thinking, and move on. And so what's the message? It's not just about people. It's about solving the problems people bring and helping people reach their potential. One of my passions, I look at people and I say, what's the potential of that individual if we could get the organization and setting right? What could we do to help that individual have a better experience at work, and their work experience leads to their home experience? How do we help people realize their potential? People say, why do I keep doing this though that I'm getting older? That's a passion. It's not going to go away. This is not a job. It's a calling in some ways.
So it's grown out of passion, but you also apply scientific rigor to it, right? You're a scientist, and you wrote to me that you made some regressions to test some of your assumptions, right?
I have to share my science. My PhD is in taxonomy.
Okay.
And taxonomy is the science of simplicity, math and algorithms to simplify world. Back then, decades ago, there was a company called Microfilms, and they sold my PhD dissertation.
Okay.
And I kept the check. I made $11.85. So decades ago, my PhD in taxonomy made $11.85. Today, that may be $30. I love the rigor of science. I love the rigor of science because I think science gives me evidence. There are a lot of opinions, and it's great to have an opinion. I'll give you an example. This is more personal in some ways. We love studies with big databases. We had a big database. We've done a lot of studies. The database had 25,000 people, something like that, about what skills do HR people need so that they deliver value. It's not a description, it's a prescription. And one of the colleagues, he was a senior officer in one of the large partner firms in a consulting firm. I'll still remember, I think I was in Europe on a phone call, and he said, I see the data, but let me give you my opinion. And I interrupted him somewhat rudely, and I said, I really appreciate your opinion, but we have 24,999 others. And the value of research is to synthesize those ideas. And so I think you should just hold your opinion. Because the data gives me a perspective that I don't get otherwise. I love evidence. I love data. I'm a counter. I'm going to confess that on any place. I love to count. I love to track. I love to, how many steps does it take to get through the airport? How many steps was I able to take with a 3-hour delay? I was counting steps as I wandered from gate to gate. Data gives me insight I don't otherwise have. That's my passion.
I'm with you, and I'm of the same breed, probably influenced by you without knowing it consciously. I like to bring evidence-based HR, and I like to indeed not follow purely opinions, but to ground them into facts, figures, patterns. And that's what AI is also allowing us to do. Yet, I've read that you say it's AI plus human ingenuity. So how is that different from what we've just discussed?
Great comment. One of the things we're finding is in the world of work, we need algorithms and evidence, and we need intuition and creativity. And they can complement each other. AI, in the way I see it used often today, and it's getting used in a lot of ways, builds capacity. It says, here are the 10 tasks, TASKS, that I do on my job. 5 of those tasks can be done through AI. I love to write. I have a writing. I want to look up an article. I want to look up an idea. I want to know. This morning I looked up, I probably shouldn't start highlighting, but I looked up David Rock. David Rock has done brilliant work on neurology and brainwaves, and I'm getting to know some of his work on SCARF and other things. So I go on AI and I say, give me a headline of David Rock's work, and I got it. It takes me 3 minutes. Without AI, that task would have taken me 2 hours. AI gives me capacity. So in these 10 tasks, 5 of them I can do with AI efficiency. Saves time, saves money. So here's the question. What does an organization do with the increased capacity? Now that I've multiplied my simple example with looking up research by David Rock, how do you do that across dozens and hundreds of people? You've now got capacity excess. One option is you fire people because we don't need as many people. I think that's dumb. AI gives me capacity. HI for me is human ingenuity, which gives me capability. Capability is what am I going to do the excess capacity? So for me, instead of spending 2 hours going into a library and finding an author's great ideas, I now can spend 1 hour and 55 minutes, because it took 5 minutes to find it, really saying, how do I turn his ideas into something that's meaningful?
So
And
that,
that's capability.
so that,
So that.
right.
Now that you got it. So that. And so when I talk to David Rock, I'm going to say, I think I understand the basics of your ideas, not the detail. How do we move your ideas to the next stage, which is the impact? And so for me, it's, and everybody's talking about this. This is the super worker. Metacognition is what David Rock calls it. The employee has metacognition with AI combined with human cognition. Everybody's talking about this combination. I'm not new in that, but it's AI for capacity, HI, human ingenuity for capability that delivers value to stakeholders.
Excellent. Thank you.
Wonderful. And we don't know how to do that yet. We're still learning.
I like the
think.
simplicity of what you just explained. When we look back in I don't know 40 years of building frameworks, is there a piece of advice that you gave earlier in your career that you would consider perhaps not wrong, but at least incomplete?
Yeah, the advice that I love to give to people, and I, again, you asked early to tell stories that people give the context of, for me, understand the phenomena. Understand and observe carefully before you try to take action. Now, let me tell you where that came from. I'm doing my PhD, and I'm nervous and excited. I haven't done it, don't know how to do it. And it's a required course called phenomenology. You study Kant, you study Hegel, you study the great philosophers. I got to confess, the first day of class, you got to read 1 or 2 of these books every week. I don't, and I realized it's going to take me 15 to 20 hours a week. I mean, I'm not that good at arcane philosophy from German philosophers in the 1800s, but it was required. So I went to the chair of the doctoral committee or the office, and I said, this course is required. And she said, it is. And I said, do I have to pass it? And she said, what do you mean? I said, what does required mean? She said, it's got to show up on your transcript. And I said, great. And I went to the professor and I said, I'm going to fail your course. You'll never see me again. I'm going to take that 15 hours a week for the next 15 weeks and put 200 hours into doing other things that are more meaningful to me. And I'll get an F. So I got an F on my and to me, by the way, that tells you a lot about me. I kind of think about it. It was required. I passed. I didn't pass the course, but it was done. For me, the phenomena, what's funny is I now go back. I wish I'd have learned how to do that. Start with the phenomena. What do you see? What are 2 things in the world that don't make sense? 2 firms in the same industry. Both earn 100. Euros, dollars, yen, whatever it is, but their market value is 50% different. Well, that's kind of weird. We got cash is the same, return, EBITDA, whatever indicator, but their market value, why would that be? 2 leaders both went through training programs. One had an impact, one didn't. And I think that's for me the phenomena. What did you observe, and what's the question that you want? I've had some PhD students. I've been privileged to work with brilliant PhD students. And I always say, go tell me the phenomena you're interested in. Write it up. Why is that interesting? By the way, that's not AI. That's the human ingenuity.
Sure. Sure.
What do you see in the world? It would be fun. By the way, it would be so fun for me to sit in your view. You listen to all these people doing podcasts, and you have a startup firm, you're out observing. What am I seeing? What am I seeing? People invest in HR, but they're not getting the output. Wow, maybe I could go create a service or a product that would help people turn their investments into an output that matters. I describe that phenomena in a rich way. So having failed phenomenology because I didn't take the course, I think phenomenology is kind of the foundation of innovation. What do I see? What do I observe? And can I see something that's a little bit quirky, a little bit off? And I listen for that all the time. What do I see? Right? I'll give you one I got this week. We need to manage change. Okay, what's the first assumption? Mindset. We're not changing fast enough. We've got to go faster. The world is changing. That's been my sermon, my comment. You got to change as fast as the world around you. If you don't change as fast as the world, you're out of business. We had a group of 30 very senior folks the last 2 days, and they said, that's not the issue we're wrestling with. We're overchanged. We've done too much. I'm burned out. And as soon as that's a phenomena. And I said, so I got two extremes. I got to change faster. I'm not changing fast enough. I'm tired of change. I'm burned out. I need to slow. And you can't slow down. I mean, that's the other, makes it a paradox. You can't say slow down. No, because you'll go broke. And I said, how many of you face, and 20%, 5 or 6 said, I got to change faster. 80% said, I'm burned out. I'm burned out. I'm overstrained. The metaphor. It's not new. I looked that up last night. I had 3 hours extra to think. It's a full sponge. It's an old metaphor. When your sponge is filled with water, you can't absorb any more till you take some out. So I'm going to start thinking about the phenomena of being overchanged. And the answer is not quit changing, because so I said to them, go back to your CEO and say, we're going to quit changing. I said, you're going to go, you're going to lose your job. You're going to get fired because that's stupid. So how do you manage an overchanged world? Okay, that's an example of a phenomena that's this week. I don't have an answer for that yet. I'm going to think about it. But
yeah.
I think that's
It
really
makes me think
interesting.
of the systems thinking, where you should not look at symptoms, but look for the root causes, and it's of the same nature,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah.
Absolutely. And how do you overcome overchange? One, quit changing stupid stuff. I mean, don't change stuff that doesn't need to be changed. Prioritize, bundle. I mean, there's solutions, but you're so right. Is just, anyway, you say, if I were advising somebody, where do you start? Observe. Look for the things that are just kind of, wow, that's a little quirky. The back of your hair just stands up and goes, oh, that's an idea. And then we need data. I mean, so
Okay.
I had data. There were 30 people. How many are here? How many are here? Well, it's 80% here. Okay. And we ended up in the last 2 days, it was fascinating. I was going to give them change models, how to go do it. Instead, we ended up spending about 3 hours, half a day, on how do you manage being overburdened.
That's the best way to avoid that a solution to a problem becomes the next problem.
Oh, that's really a nice line. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, Dave, I suspect you talk a lot to CHROs, CEOs. What are these very senior HR people tell you when the doors are closed?
This job is tough. This job is tough. And we have competence models. We've done competence models for 30 years. At this point, I think we know the competencies for HR. I mean, you got to know the business. You got to know HR. You got to manage change. You got to build personal credibility. Behind the door, and some of them are talking, and I'll talk about the Age of HR book in just a minute. The one word that I keep hearing, courage. Courage. Do I, as the HR professional, have courage to go to my business executives and say to them, great intent. You're using AI to build capacity and cutting headcount. Great short-term solution, and it's not going to get you where you need to go. I'm here to help you, the CEO, create value for you, values defined by the receiver. And if you use AI to cut headcount and not build capability that serves customers, we're going to save money, but long term, you're not going to create a company that succeeds in the marketplace. That takes courage. And it's tough to have courage to again, not challenge to be a challenger, but challenge in order to move the agenda forward. That's the piece I'm hearing from. And so I'm going to do an aside. There are some incredible, I look at the people that have been on your podcast. I just marvel at you've been able to do such a great job. And as you move forward, you'll continue, I hope, to have good people other than me that are better. We have good people. And I go, how do we get their insights into the hands of the HR professionals? There's over 1 million HR people in the world, everywhere, in Nepal, Brazil, Lithuania, I don't care, Iran. How do we get the ideas from the heads of these folks? And so we started asking them, could you give us a 1,500-word essay? Not long. That's a LinkedIn post. I post on LinkedIn. They're 1,200 words, but we went to 15. About what you think the next generation HR people should know and do based on your experience. How can you add value? By the way, I'm going to get a little bit emotional. Not one said no. By the way, that is so cool. This is not a commercial venture. Not one said no. We had 85 people. They teamed up, did 62 essays. Not one. In fact, we have a lot of people that are mad they're not in the book. That's another issue. And they could be. We could have done another 85 people. But not one said no. And they said, 1,500 words, it's going to take me a little bit of time, but I'm going to, and they're dense, they're focused. And what's beautiful is they're all over the map. Some are talking talent, some are talking culture, some are talking AI, some are talking personal. And we put that together into a book with Anthony Nyberg, who's brilliant, at South Carolina. Now we have the age of AI, now we have the age of HR. And then we said, it's free. It's free. I think you'd be crazy not to. And by the way, somebody said, well, I read your book. And I go, no, you've got it wrong. Number one, it's not my book. It's 85 people. Number two, don't read this cover to cover.
No.
Open it up. And there's no hard copy, by the way. You held up the only copy. It's a soft copy. Open it up, scan the chapters. I'd love to know what Walmart's doing. I'd love to know what IBM's doing. I'd love to know what Singapore's doing. I'd love to know what India's doing. Scan the chapter. Wow, I'm going to go look at India. I'm going to read what T.V. Rao wrote, who's one of the thought leaders in India. Or say, I got a question. I'm really struggling with succession. Boop, 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 boop. Scan. Pat Wright, probably the thought leader in the world on executive succession. Pat just did a chapter on succession. I'm really worried about building personal credibility. Bill Conity, one of the great HR leaders of our era, worked at GE, worked in private equity, did a chapter on personal credibility. Don't read the book. Use the book as a way to help you get value. And I'm really touched. We're getting it. It's free. Download it. We'll send you a copy. We think it's going to be in front of 1 million people. And you're helping with that.
We'll share it with the people who listen to this podcast. And yeah, I did exactly what you said. I looked at the chapters and then I started reading some. One of them is the 5I model, a strategic framework for talent management by Holly Tyson. It's wonderful. It's super
I have to
well
confess,
written.
I didn't read that one. I edited some of the chapters. That was, by the way, I shouldn't have confessed that.
If I can advise one thing, read that chapter.
Yeah, read that chapter. Thank you. If I were facing, I mean, that's the point. This is like a menu in a great restaurant.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm much bigger than you. I've eaten almost every item on the menu, but you don't eat every item. You say, well, today I'd like shrimp. Tomorrow I'd like whatever. But these are not the only 85 thought leaders, but it's an incredible mix of, I think 27 of them are fellows in the National Academy of HR. We have like 25 CHROs at sitting companies. We've got the scholars who've done the research. Rob Ployhart's work on talent is just brilliant. And he's written books. I think we added up the authors of the people who've done books have written over 300 books when you look at the authors. And they're putting their ideas, 1,500 words, It's
What a
just a
present!
remarkable
What a
book.
present! What a gift to the HR community or broader. Uh, Everything that we've discussed, I think, comes from decades of work in large and complex organizations. How about mid-size or even smaller organizations?
So critical. Some of the research we've done with large data sets, we've cut the data by organizational size. So, and I figure 500 or less, small enterprise, 500 to 2,000, small, medium enterprise. Here's what we've discovered. The human capability issues, talent, leadership, organization matter more in a small company. So let's assume somebody I know named Frédéric is doing a startup company. How critical is it that you get the right people?
Yeah.
I don't know how many people are in your startup company, 5, 10, 15,
We are
you start small.
22 now. Yeah.
By the way, if you make a mistake with 22, that's 5% of your company.
Yeah.
And by the way, we do sometimes, I can't afford it. How critical is it that you start with a culture that will then grow? And you don't, I was doing work for got to be careful here, for a large government agency, and they were doing some startup work. And it was really a tricky job. And they said, we want to build an engaging culture, participation, all the things we talk about in HR, engaging, caring, etc. But the startup is so demanding. We're going to be demanding. We're going to be tough. We're going to be top down. We're being command and control to get started. And my comment to them is, you can't do that. You can't in your startup phase be command and control, and then a year or two later, as the agency grows, shift to empower and engage. You can't do that. By the way, they fired me. They said, we don't agree. And that's fine. I mean, I still think, if I were advising a startup company going from 0 to 20 people, I'd say, build today the roots of the culture that you want to see when that 22 is 200 or 2,000. And it may take you a little longer. And they said, we don't have time. I said, you can engage people quickly. That's why we have technology. You can do things, but so to the startup, those listening entrepreneurs, you are the head of HR. You're the chief HR officer until your company gets into the 80 to 100 people.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you better do it well, not just your people, your culture, your behavior as a leader. When you're the entrepreneur, you don't realize that people are watching you. What time do you come to work? How do you ask questions? Who do you engage? How do you listen? You become the leader that you want others to be. So I think those small companies just are so critical with their management of human capability.
I find it hard to define culture. What are we talking about? Is it the DNA of the company or something else? And recently, I found a way to. I'll try it with you, Dave, if you allow.
Please.
Isn't culture the operationalization of your purpose? How do you make your purpose?
Can I consult you for just a moment? This is live consulting. So that what? Culture is the operation of your purpose so that?
Well, so that's through the behaviors and the processes that will emerge in your company, you better deliver your purpose to your stakeholders that you want to serve. So that you create value for your stakeholders.
So that a customer buys more product.
Yeah, also that an employee...
an investor invests more money.
Yeah.
Debt or equity.
Yeah.
By the way, to me, culture has gone through the waves you just described. It's a set of values that we turn into behaviors. It's a set of organizational rituals. It's a set of unwritten rules. You can feel a culture. I love to ask people, think about the stores where almost everybody, and it may be true in Belgium as well. We lived in Brussels a long time ago, but out by the Atom, we lived out in the Legacy World's Fair area. And almost everybody where you live have 2 or 3 grocery stores where you can shop. Is the culture feel different when you go from store A to store B to store C or a restaurant? And I can feel the difference. Where I took you, I hope, was culture is not just the internal purpose, values, and behaviors, but it's the identity of the firm in the mind of your key customer. What did the customer feel when they walked into my store? In America, there's some stores we can shop that are just discount stores. So they have stacks of items, they're not shown well, and you buy on price. I'm buying on price because that's what this store does. Other stores have really exclusive items. They package goods. They have all kinds of stuff. My job in building a culture, I think, is to start with, what do I want the customer or the investor, what do I want the customer to know my company for? And that's brand, it's identity, it's whatever you want to call that outside in. Turn that then into the internal values. Turn that into, are my internal values reflecting the value to the customer? Or I'll go the other way, since we do this work and it's so fun. Your company has a value statement. We value service. We value collaboration. We value innovation. Take those values to your key customers. 1, are those the values you want us to have? Yeah, I want you to do service. I want you to do collaboration, innovation. 2, what are the behaviors? Notice you mentioned behavior as a part of culture. What are the behaviors we should demonstrate to show that we live them even better than our competitors? Everyone in our industry wants service. So what do we do to show you, the customer, that we do it better? You respond quickly, you do this. Are these the values you want us to have? What do we have to do to show we live them to you? And number 3, when we do those behaviors, will you buy more from us? When I talk to senior business leaders, and I spend about half of my time, they say, here comes culture. Oh, bring a pet to work, Good Friday. Yeah, and their just eyes are glazing over. And I say, let me take you through 3 questions. You got a value statement. Are these the values you want? Okay. What are the behaviors? They say, yeah, that's interesting. Will you buy more from us? And suddenly they're going, you mean culture is not just a value statement. It's getting a customer to buy more because we live the values that matter to them. And I
Outside
go,
in.
you got it, outside in.
Yeah.
And then they go, well, that's not how we define culture. And so the definition of culture becomes less fuzzy. If a customer values price, I really value price. Guess what? We're going to build good low price. Walmart, Costco in the United States, Tesco, or what's the firm that does price in Europe? I can't remember. We're going to value low price. If a customer values quality, we're going to make quality happen at a high price. Culture becomes very tailored to the value we create in the marketplace. To me, that's a very different definition. So there's not one definition, but there's a process to define the right culture.
And what's the role of HR in the culture definition? Or
Oh, that's a great question. I think it would be fun to put a lens looking back at your career. I bet you did this without having the framework. We're a facilitator. We're an architect. I don't think we own it. I think the senior business leader owns it. But I think we say we're in a company right now that the senior business leader has put out a phrase, we want to be a market-based culture. It's a great phrase, some version of that, customer-centric. Our job in HR is to say to the business leader and her team or his team, can we now turn that into a set of practices? Let's turn that idea. And where do you start? Let's go talk to customers. What does market-based culture mean to you? The company I'm thinking of, they had an executive offsite where the executives started to define market-based culture. And my comment was, time out. Market-based culture means the customer defines what market-based culture means. Why are we meeting as an executive group? Let's go talk to customers. Who are they? What do we give them? What can we give them that our competitors can't as easily? Let's get that mindset. And I think good HR people are doing not just strategic HR, but what we call stakeholder HR. And that's the direction we're headed.
you said good HR. So is this what differentiates excellent HR from average HR?
Yeah, there's a lot of things, but clearly getting the content and I think the best HR over time is going to be HR that creates value for the stakeholders, including the executives and the employed, no question, but also customers. One of the lines I like, and I like simplicity, is who's the human? And so when I'm meeting with HR people, you're human. Who's the human? Well, our employees. True. We have 22 employees. They're the human. And our customers are human beings. Our investors are human beings. When you go try to build a startup company, you go get some capital. I have to convince a human being that they should invest in me versus someone else. How do I do that? What do I show them? The communities where we live and work are made up of human beings. How does what we do create a better community to live in? And so for me, the human and human resources is any person, human being, who engages with our organization. And we want to help all of them get value from what we do.
It's a human aspect of our organization in a very broad sense.
Very broad, very broad.
Love it. What are the conversations that the CHROs should have now with their boards?
Great question, and very similar. Often we go to the board, and there was a company that said, I got invited to build a new leadership training. I need to ask for 500,000 euros to build a training program. And the head of HR said, no, that's not what I'm going to go to the board with. I'm going to go to the board with, how do we increase revenue from our targeted customers? And the board goes, but you're in HR. No, I'm a business person. My job in HR is to get more revenue from targeted customers. Who are they? What do they need? How do we increase that revenue? And then I'm going to ask for $500,000 because the $500,000 is going to be linked to the revenue per customer. So we're going to build a training program, and guess what? 30% of the participants in the program are going to be targeted customers that we don't do business with today. We're going to have 5 customers as part of the faculty. We're going to build a program so that those leaders in our organization who leave our program are focused on what the customer needs and how they can better deliver it. And the return on investment is going to be huge. We're going to get more revenue from targeted customers. That's the mindset, skill set, and setting that I hope we get in our senior HR people. I'll give one example. I won't name the company again, and I'm sorry I'm giving bad examples. I could give good examples too. My colleague and I are meeting with a CHRO of a large Fortune Global 50 company. It's probably a Global 200 company, big company. What do you say to your investors? And the comment she said was, I don't talk to investors. That's investment relations. That's finance. That's the CEO. No. You need to be talking to investors. You need to be helping them see the quality of culture, leadership that will give them confidence in your future. But that's finance's job. No, that's your business job. And that's the mindset that I hope we can begin to instill. The good news is that was a year or two ago. I hope your podcast, why do I come on your podcast? Let's get this message. By the way, I know we're getting close. I got to ask, why did you pick that background? I've shared my background of people I admire. What's about your background that you like? It's such a beautiful background.
Well, I've been hosted by Le Cercle de Wallonie, and I want to thank them because it was too hot in my home with the heat wave that we have. I couldn't imagine being focused there on our conversation in such a... I have no air conditioning, so it's here. And you see the atomium there. Do you see it? You mentioned the atomium.
I didn't see it. That's Belgium. Yeah. That's Brussels. We lived about a quarter of a mile, 200 meters from that. A long time ago.
So why did you accept to come in this podcast?
It's interesting. I get asked to do a lot. And you told me that this podcast, as you expanded, and it's new, it's like a startup, will go to senior HR leaders who will make decisions that will bring more value to their employees and to the communities where they work. That was your mission. That was your passion. This is not about Frédéric being smart, Frédéric being insightful. It's about so that we are doing this podcast so that those who listen and the concentric circles of dropping a ball in water will spread. And I want it. That's a message I care about. It's a message I care about passionately. By the way, I got to confess, last night, after a 3-hour delay, getting in at 1 a.m., I was wondering, do I want to keep doing this? And then the answer is, of course. This is what I live for as a podcast. So that if I have an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old, that the world they live in 10 years or 15 years as they enter the workforce will perhaps be a small bit better. That's the age of HR. I mean, nobody said no.
Isn't that the nicest? So that we've just discussed, so that the future people benefiting from our work would just have a better work experience.
I was trying to look on my desk. I have 10 grandchildren. Why am I working? So that our grandchildren will have opportunities to do things that are meaningful. Well, here's 2 of them. Here's another 3 of them.
Oh, excellent.
And here's another 4 of them, missing
Oh, so
one.
cute. Yeah.
And I mean, will I directly impact them? Perhaps through DNA and their parents who are teaching them. But maybe when they go work in a company somewhere, maybe it's a company that Q7 leader that has created some tools and they're in a company that operates just a little bit better. I mean, that's the agenda. I think many, I hope we're not just doing a job. I hope it's more than just putting in time until we retire and then we go sit on a beach, and that just is, for me, that's not very interesting.
I have a final question. If you could go back and give one piece of advice to young Dave Ulrich at the very start of his career, what would you tell him?
I'll go with the first thought that popped into my mind. It's okay. You're going to have successes and you're going to have failures. And if you don't have some failure, by the way, I have some wonderful failures. I mean, incredible failures. It's okay. It's okay. Keep trying. It's okay. I could just go through a list of papers that have been rejected, books that have been turned down. I didn't get tenure at a university because I was doing too much consulting. You know what? It's okay. In a world of uncertainty, focus on the things you're certain about, and it's okay. Live with those. And other people's okay is also okay. What I'm doing at my age is unique to my wife and I. We've agreed that's our agenda. Last night as I was traveling with my partner, we both looked at each other and said, everyone our age is retired on a beach. They're not on a beach in France right now. It's too hot, but they're, and why are we? And we're going, it's okay. What they're doing is great for them, and we honor them, and we wish them well. It's okay.
What a piece of wisdom. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dave. It's very generous of you to have given your time.
What's your hope? I've got to ask one question. What's your hope from your podcast? What do you hope people will leave with? I want people to listen to this podcast so that.
I want the people to listen to that podcast so that they can find new sources of inspiration, so that what they will tell you when they meet you and the door is closed is different than what you've reported.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Congratulations. I wish you well. Let me know how to support you in the work you do.
Thank you very much, Dave. That was a real pleasure. I don't know the words in English, so thank you so much. And your reference to Q7 leader is as a startup. I'm not the founder. I've joined the startup as a former customer. It has so much value to hear our system in your mouth. It creates so much value to us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, and share it with others around you.